Hiya, John.
Bonjour.
How are you?
Good.
What's been happening? You fell out with some guy, didn't you?
Yeah, the leader of the Canadian Nationalist Party, Travis Patron.
Yes. You said he wouldn't give up his appeals. Was that the problem?
Well, in a way, yes, but also what he said in his appeals were kind of insane too. It's not necessarily that there is honor in, appealing a wrongful conviction, but in how he did it was kind of wasn't really in good taste. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's a bit noisy where you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm outside. Yeah, okay. I'm outside. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can just about make up what you're saying about Travis. Well, not using legally recognized arguments to appeal his case.
Yeah, so basically he just uses the Magna Carta as the be all end all of his argument. He argued that they didn't have jurisdiction over him because they violated his religious liberties, which is in the clause 1 of the Magna Carta, and that they don't have jurisdiction over him because of that. And I just thought that was insane, especially if for assaulting 2 women. He also used that argument for his hate speech trial as well too. But if he's going to use the Bible explicitly references ethnic Jews, so it's kind of a losing battle at this point. I don't know why he just doesn't just move on and just reevaluate what he wants to do. But he seems to be getting on a even worse path at this point, and still thinks the Magna Carta is valid, and he thinks that he has his own court, and he was incarcerated for 2 years, and he was in solitary confinement, so he was basically shut off from the rest of the world. So I'm worried about his mental state right now. But I mean, he's a grown man, so I can't really do anything really about it.
2 years, huh?
Yeah.
2 years in solitary confinement. That's quite bad, isn't it? But there was something wrong with him. Why was he in solitary?
So he was trying to. Basically, the court basically said that because there was a lot of accusations levied against him or his person, whatever you would like to prefer, that he it was the reverse onus on him not to breach the peace or create mischief or whatever that may be. So they denied him the writ of habeas corpus, which justifies the incarceration of somebody, and because without giving a reason. Yeah, so they said that they didn't need a reason at this time because there was a lot levied against him.
Because he'd already attacked women and other things?
Yeah, so attacked women, hate speech, and then there were some mischief charges in there as well, and a breach of probation. Yeah, so that's why he was in jail for almost 2 years, about almost 2 years. And then he was convicted of hate speech just October 2022, so 6 months ago, I think now, or 7 months ago. And the assault charge, he was convicted in summer of 2022, so I think August or September, somewhere in there. But he's not in good shape, and he's paranoid about the government spying on him all the time, and analyzing every word that he says, and he puts it upon other members to be as paranoid as him, and and then he still wants to seize buildings and stuff like that. So it's just kind of like, it's almost like a drug addict, just doesn't know when to stop. He just doesn't know when the party's over, and he just keeps going. And it's just like, you don't know what to do with him at this point. Just trying to talk sense into him. It just seems like it's a mute point at this stage of the game. So it's just better to part ways and just move on. It's already deregistered anyway. He was complaining that, the deregistration was invalid because he was in jail while it was deregistered. And just shit that just doesn't make any sense. It's like, if you don't comply with Elections Canada, like if you're going to submit something to Elections Canada and you're going to agree to abide by those rules, like having a certain amount of members still register, I mean, they have every right to deregister the party. Just because, you made some bad judgment calls doesn't necessarily mean that fucking, it's not illegitimate. It's just almost like he's just like a grown ass child that just can't accept that he failed. Like, I understand, like, life is failure. Like, you always fail upwards, but you have to learn eventually, right? And it doesn't seem like he's really learned. It just seems like, he could do no wrong. He's the grandmaster leader of the nationalist party, the only nationalist party in Canada, and he seems to have a big ego about himself, and and some of the stuff that he's said to me when I first picked him up when he was on the street, hungry, hasn't eaten in 10 days, going on hunger strikes in jail, stuff like that. Just kind of crazy shit like, oh, I'll find you a virgin wife if you do everything I tell you to do. And I didn't really say anything at the time because I was just compassionate. I know he was in a tough spot, but now it's just kind of like, gotta give him, yeah, he's like quadrupling down at this point. Like, he's just out of control, menace to society. It's just, yeah. Some people say he's a Fed. Like, he could be a possible Fed to discredit the nationalist movement, but I just think he's just mentally ill at this point.
Yes, he does sound the latter.
Yeah.
And it's probably, well, it's definitely better that you don't have to, well, I mean, all these things
babysit him
cost time and money, doesn't it? And energy.
Yeah.
And if it's a lost cause, then you distract or you detract from your cause. You make it you make it worse. For future people to say, oh, look, there are all these, people who haven't led it that well, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I kind of understand where people come from when they want to take a step back and like kind of look at things a little bit and reevaluate what they want to do. Some people can view that as cowardice. Like, obviously there's a impulse to criticize those conservatives who don't do anything or say anything as cowardice or neurotic or, stuff like that. And then there's on the other end where you're just like, you're so gung-ho on, being right all the time that you don't necessarily see the errors of your ways. So that you could be wrong. So I don't know if that made sense, but
well, yes, it does, because you're damaging the cause. You're making it harder for other people in the movement to kind of raise their status and make their, be taken seriously. Basically, that's what. I mean, I think that's a problem with most people. It is to be taken seriously, because obviously they laugh at us and ignore everything we say and refuse to answer questions, which is really the only weapon against them. Asking questions.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, I mean,
and I also made the mention too. There seems to be kind of this overarching kind of neurotic kind of belief in the right and in the West in general, like that, the more you get persecuted by the government, the more noble you are. And it seems like that derives from their God being a co-equal to a man dying on a cross for his cause, almost. It's almost like like Christians almost like invited into themselves, like, oh, we're being persecuted just like Jesus, instead of seeing how folly they are and how irrational that they might be. It's almost like it's their crux as, even people who are not, like, I guess, that go to a church or go to a sermon every Sunday. It's kind of the cultural ethic or ethos of, if you're persecuted by the government, you are, the more you're persecuted, the more noble you are. Doesn't necessarily have to do with how sane you look or how coherent that you sound or how effective you are. It's just, you're only effective of how much persecuted you are, and that's kind of an unfortunate thing about Christianity having a stranglehold on Western culture.
I suppose for Christians, it seems to have nowhere to run, but in a way, it's a kind of, heads I win and tails you lose. That, it would be great if they did something that actually, won an argument or something. And on the other hand, if they lose, they can always say they're winning when in fact they're losing again.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, they call it the martyr complex too, don't they? It's kind of, it's another win-win for people suffering from it.
Yeah. You could be mentally ill.
Yeah. And I know so many people who just refuse to change their ways because, probably they don't know how to act. They just know that they have to do this, and then they get hit by the police or by the courts and say, look, it's a conspiracy.
Oh, yeah. So, instead of getting legal help or, adjusting their arguments, they just double down and just, get even more crazy.
Yeah.
It's just almost as a self-fulfilling prophecy, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Have you adjusted your arguments?
I have, in a sense. It's still a work in progress, but it's been a tough go, but I'm working on it. I'm working on, building peace with even my enemies. Even though some people will say that's cowardice or whatever, or I shouldn't even entertain such a crazy thought. I've been I guess that would be the main adjustment, is just working on being non-combative with crown agents or government officials. That would be my main adjustment. In terms of my religious convictions, it's still there. I guess now that I don't have a revolutionary as a co-equal to God or a guy on a cross, I kind of have to go in and say, well, I'm actually fulfilling the 5 pillars of the faith, or the 10 commandments of the Bible, and then I just kind of work from there and try to build as much peace as possible, and try to be in line with all the scripture of the Abrahamic prophets. So I guess that's the Islamic way. I understand that you don't really regard the Bible as having any wisdom, but
I do.
Okay.
I mean, the better stories are in the Old Testament.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a difference. I guess you adjusted too, because you're gung ho about about Christianity being kaput, but I guess you kind of adjusted too finding some wisdom.
We need to use New Testament against Christians. I mean, I use really the scripture is how you can spot that these people who call themselves Jews, Christians, and Muslims are not following their own rules. So basically, you need to know it.
Right.
And use their own principles and own beliefs against them. And,
I remember I was on Paul VanderClay, and he was trying to justify like enforcing like sexual morality, and he said, well, everyone's tried to do it and doesn't work, and if you impose law, you'll make more sinners, right? And I told him, well, isn't it your duty in Deuteronomy that if you don't follow the commandments of God, that humans will turn into beasts, men will lay with men, and women will lay with women, and and you'll just turn God into a trinket almost, and which most Christians do with, like, if they wear the cross on there's a necklace as some sort of religious piety, as opposed to actually being convicted in their heart and their mind on how they live honestly. And it seems that even a pastor of such significance, such as Paul VanderClay, he seems to be of the opinion, just like any other Christian, that, well, as long as they accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior, that's all that really matters, right? So again, it goes back to
that's their promise. But the thing is it true? Because there are all these contradictory verses in the Old Testament and the Quran saying associating partners with God is an unforgivable sin, and even under Christianity it says that idolatry is a sin, and blasphemy used to be punished with death. So it's not like it's completely new to them. They're just decided not to talk about it.
Yeah,
but
I wonder.
I noticed how excited they got. Like certain subjects are just not to be discussed, and you trigger them a few times just by saying, well, perhaps these unmarried mothers should be discouraged some way, by the law, and they got so triggered.
Wow. Yeah, if you can't even denounce like single motherhood, then what's even the point of having a church, right?
Yeah, I mean, fornication is an English word, and it was a word that Christians used to understand.
Yeah.
And was considered a mortal sin. I mean, I guess I'm an anorak because I know about these things. Mortal sins and venial sins and, deadly sin.
Oh, yeah, different types of sins. Yeah. Yeah. Some people get confused when you say, well, there's different types of sins and they have different weights. Like sexual immorality is definitely a sin, but it doesn't bear as much weight as idolatry. And some people can't even grasp the concept of, that the sins have, different effects. Different sins have different effects on, I guess you could say, human soul or human conscience or whatever you may call,
Yeah, but mortal sins is sort of like, well, you're endangering your very afterlife. You go to hell if you carry on like this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like sodomy and blasphemy and idolatry, and actually, for Jews, these carry the death sentence.
Yeah.
Or the same thing, like idolatry, it's death, blasphemy, death, sodomy, adultery, and lots of other things as well for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a good way of indicating that, it's really terrible. If you break the Sabbath, it's death for you. Because it does even specify a punishment, like you have to take the breaker of the Sabbath outside the city gates and stone him to death.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, it's a death penalty. It's a death penalty, and now they've forgotten about it too. These Jews.
Yeah. Well, didn't they say like that's in Revelation in the Bible? It talks about like, all the religions, all the cultures will turn into one kind of monolith of a debauchery, and you'll be forced to take the mark on your right hand or something like that. Like all religions and all countries basically will be indistinguishable from each other because of their debauchery of some sorts.
Well, we seem to be heading that way.
Zionists believe that if they just build the third temple, that the Gentiles will rule over them, and they will that will be their salvation if the Gentiles worship the third temple, I guess, or fall under some sort of, I guess you could say, Noahide laws.
They needed to be built by Gentiles. They can't do it themselves. They're not laborers. They'll have to get the Arabs to do it.
Yeah.
Who else are going
Trick
to
the
get to
Arabs.
do it? Chinese?
Well, Chinese are
They
atheists, though,
can't
right?
do it
So
themselves. I mean,
yeah.
they could probably build a temple if you give them the specifications.
Oh yeah, like, but they believe that like Arabs are dumb though, right? Like, like they're not of I don't know. There's a lot of racism there, so especially with Jewish people. Everyone wants to say white people are racist. Probably like white people are like the least racist people in the world. What, at least. Not all white people, of course, but in the West at least. But
Because you're told not to be racist, but I think everybody is told not to be racist now, so they all have to mind their P's and Q's.
Yeah, you
I mean,
can't notice.
I've heard these dreams where they're all just black people complaining about the government, and then they started accusing each other of being racist. It's actually quite funny. They start. I mean. They actually take on, they take on all the, habits and customs of, white people, because white people are being copycatted, and you're spreading your evil around the world.
White people are evil.
And then recently I heard this rabbi who basically blamed white people for corrupting the morals of Jews. I'm sure I said it to you. Because he just said they're going to pay. They corrupted our morals.
Oh, like that America is basically like, I've heard of like rabbis saying like America is like the biggest shaitan of, and they're gonna fall. And but I think some of that has to do with like the resentment of like American expansionism and individualism and having their own empire. And there's a lot of historical significance when you have an empire like that is kind of it says the government for the people and by the people, and you have on top of that you have probably the most powerful empire in the world in terms of propagating ideas and having the U.S. dollar and the Fed dollar and and imposing kind of liberal democracy values for I think like half a century now, almost a century, half a century at least. Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of resentment there because they wanted to control the American empire. They wanted to have it their way, but they didn't want like a constitution or the Bill of Rights or anything like that. Like they just wanted to, be like kind of a British empire run government where, there's still elements of that, but, like they just didn't want America to spread ideas that, the human has a divine soul and they have a free will. They don't like that idea.
So who are you talking about that they don't like the idea of a divine soul?
Like the Vatican, the City of London, like, people who made Washington, D.C., all those people, like they don't like the idea that a human being has a free will and they can make their own decision. And I guess those are maybe that's probably where they're coming from is like, well, the humans have free will, then they can do what they want. I mean, of course, there's consequences, of course, but they just don't like the idea of anyone having any free will because they can't control.
People have it. I mean, I think very few people. I think maybe about 20% of people have the ability to think independently. Other people will just say, well, I'm following the crowd. It's just safer. And I don't care about the reasons. I'm just following the crowd.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we just revert back to that kind of, comfortability, I guess, falling with the mad crowds, even if they're irrational, like you could just fall within a crowd so you can keep your job, keep your status, and, and live a comfortable life as opposed to saying what's true and risking, backlash. Right. So I guess, like the backlash, I guess, is where is how much you're willing to take. Right. But at the same time, if you make it into like, you make it into like, oh, well, I'm getting all this backlash because I'm speaking the truth, but you're getting more and more insane each time that you, words come out of your mouth. They're incoherent and they're not you're not figuring out like the situation of the room. You know what I mean? Like you discredit yourself and you discredit the your cause. So there is that aspect of it as well too. So like
But
you always want to.
Everybody's being accused of being mad or evil. I'm sure you've been accused of being mad and evil.
Yeah, but like, are they right though? Like, are they right in accusing us of being mad and evil? Like, maybe they thought that they definitely have a reason why they accused us of being mad and evil. But there is truth and then there's opinion, right? That's just their opinion. Their opinion is based upon virtue signaling and getting social score or social credit score or whatever they have coming down the pike. But
and
like if you
not being able to answer questions because they can't answer questions.
Yeah, exactly. So they can't answer questions. They'll just block and delete you, or they'll just double down on their insanity. But at the same time, you can't. It can get insane. But I guess that'd be up to the free will individual to discern whether they are on the right path or not. And I guess that would be where the knowledge and wisdom comes in, and they can discern whether they're on the true way or not. Because you can go the other way too far. You can just be provocative for its own sake, right? Like you could, you've heard of the term spurging out kind of thing. Like you could spurg out and like, haha, see, I'm speaking the truth, but really you just there's that fine level. I always just say there's a fine line between sanity and insanity, right? That's only for you to decide. So I guess I'm an individualist that way, but I do believe that there is a fine line between insanity and sanity, and it's just up to us to determine if we cross it or not. It's not up to the crowd. Crowd is they have their own agenda, they have their own issues. Like if you go with the crowd just for its own sake, that's probably, I would say, that's insanity. But if you go on your own free will, you can fail, but it's up to you to determine, how you fail and how you can move forward and make your cause more credible, right? Even if people don't like it, they'll say, well, this guy, it'll be a seed planted in their subconscious or whatever, and they will view you as more credible. Even if they don't like you, they'll respect you. I think respect is the highest honor to get, even from your enemies.
Yeah, and I think people ought to know the reason why you are doing what you're doing, and if their reason, mostly it's incoherent, they won't even answer your question. So, I mean, I like to think that people will know, what my answer is, to most questions if they've been paying attention. But so even if they don't agree, that they know how I'm going to answer a particular question or something, and I think that's something compared to, oh, I don't know why she said that. I never even understood what anything she said. I think that's worse if people don't even understand what your reasons are.
Oh yeah. That's, well, sometimes they're just willfully ignorant in order to not even address what you had to say.
Yeah, like today. Okay, I didn't know this guy was an anarchist, but basically, he was saying I don't agree with top-down persuasion, and I thought, well, that's just stupid because I know he has kids. So is he saying he's never disciplined his children? Does he mean that his father or his parents never disciplined him? Because that's also top-down persuasion. And I was going on this theme of, well, the law is top-down persuasion, the police are top-down persuasion, and you can't really do without that in any society, because the people of that society would have to acknowledge some higher, the law is supposed to be above them, right? and therefore they can't say, oh, well, it doesn't apply to me, or something like that, or they have to somehow explain what the law is for. And I mean, that would just begin to answer a few questions about why everything is going wrong. It's like, where did it come from, this whole crazy idea that it's okay to be transgender? Where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
Because usually, when people change a religion, they tell you, don't they? It's like, oh, the Romans have invaded us, so now we have to take their religion. I mean, there'd be some sort of explanation, or we had an Islamic revolution in Iran, or that there would be some explanation of why the laws are the way they are. It's like, yeah, we just had a revolution and now we're communist, or now we're Nazi, or whatever. But it's like, what's happening to the West is, when did it happen? Who's changing the rules? Why are they changing the rules? We don't know, and nobody's asking.
Yeah, some would say that it's just like part of like the World Economic Forum Agenda 2030, sustainable development, and they basically want to, end the differences between male and female, where you won't be able to tell the difference anymore. There's even actually, like, I've seen bathroom doors with like unisex symbols on it, or it just says unisex party. So there's no really male or female bathrooms anymore. It's just there's no differences. It's just all one kind of conglomeration. I guess that you can branch that out into diversity, and basically having all these having mass immigration, dilute the identity of all the nations, and so that they're more easily governable into kind of this one world government. The destruction of the nuclear family, which is basically like the middle class.
What did you say about the middle class?
Oh, the destruction of the middle class, like economically, with like inflation. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear everybody thinking they don't care about the working classes, and surprise, surprise, they don't care about the middle classes either. And surprise, surprise, they probably don't care about certain sections of the upper classes either.
Yeah.
They don't care about anything, really, only about the short term.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically like this. Some people say like it's kind of this like controlled kind of demolition of more like
of masculinity. I would say it's like, it's happening to you guys, and I see the West as being turned into a bee colony even now as we speak. Basically, we don't see any point in having men around, not really. And and in a bee colony, the worker bee is female, and there's a queen bee, and there are a few drones allowed, and that's it. Everyone else is female in a bee colony.
Have you ever noticed, like, if you walk into a government building, like all the workers are like female, or like if you're talking to a government worker, they're like female kind of thing?
Oh, the radio is all female voices.
Yeah.
It's like usually really dumb females, complaining about something and whatever.
Complaining about this white men. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They believe the earth is flat. They're dumb people. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like, it's just basically they want obedient people, and women are very obedient. They will. I've heard the Black community talk about, like, the Black woman will tear up her man and demasculinize him, but if that Black woman is working for a white man, she'll be really submissive, and she'll submit to her white boss, and because the white boss has money and resources, and It's almost like just like a programming of like these women just hating men, like especially black women, like they're really what's the word? Not neurotic, but like I don't know, like very unappealing or very rude, I guess you could say, to their men. So
Well, I think I know people are speculating on all kinds of conspiracy theories, but I think it's simply because if you don't practice marriage, then men and women will be living apart from each other, and they won't care about each other and do things that will be against the interests of each other and not have children. And that's why everything is getting worse, and your politicians are getting more corrupt, and actually you can't even be bothered to govern people anymore, which is why they're basically busily getting people to sterilize themselves, from the age of 5 in schools, and that's what they're doing. And I've noticed that
are they actually explicitly sterilizing children from the age of 5?
Well, I mean, changing your sex is kind of.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's basically sterilization.
Yeah. Hey, 5-year-old kid, did you know that when you're grown up, you can be gay and get married, and you could become a member of the opposite sex, and that's it. You've just basically condemned these people who follow your advice, who follow government advice, into dying childless.
Yeah, that's basically like depopulation kind of agenda. They don't want more people.
What I've noticed with women of a certain age is that if they're childless and divorced and single, they will have this gloomy view of life, like, oh, I only love animals, I hate people, I would like the human race to disappear because they've all, I've been miserable with men, that kind of thing. And they actually want to kind of get into their coffin and nail it shut, and want to be buried by a certain time. And by that I mean the entire human race.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kind of loathing for humanity, and saying, oh, but nature's so much better, the birds, the dogs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've heard these people talk like like, oh, like they always say like elephants are compassionate, or like like these progressives, it's like they'll venerate like animals in the wild over like human beings, but like human beings are the only ones that can actually abstract like morals. And so like it's almost like a non sequitur to begin with to even make that comparison. But to take it a step further and say that, oh wow, it would just be better if we all just died and we just went back to like the jungle. I don't know, like or the earth to just be better off if it just shaked off all the humans on Earth. Yes. and we wouldn't have climate change anymore. I've heard that argument too. There's like, no one wants to have everyone, not everyone wants to have solar panels and renewable energy, and we're not going to care about its viability, where you just we're just so invested in like this propaganda of like stand with Ukraine and
I think it's the women who believe in it most. The women of a certain age, women who've had, divorced women, single women.
Yeah, or I'll add on this, or men who are sexually active.
Oh yes, so they'll just agree with the women because they want to be sexually active.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be another classification as well.
Simps.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, I define them as men who agree with women in the hope of being sexually active.
Yeah, they just adopt crazy things that they don't really believe in privately. Or, you'd be surprised that when, people are in private, they talk a lot differently than, in public, right? And it's just like, well, why don't you guys just make your views more known publicly? And they're like, oh no, we can't do that. They'll call us racist or anti-Semitic or, or misogynist or whatever, right? Or the media
but
will
it would
call
be a
us bad
show of
names.
overwhelming force, and that would shut them up, because at the moment they think, well, we're all afraid and we dare not say anything. We won't say boo to a goose, and these people who are shutting up are just digging their own grave, in my view.
Oh,
because a show of overwhelming force would just make the liberals retreat.
Oh yeah,
and we could all easily, well, present company accepted that. I think a lot of people use social media to, say what they want, and they think, oh, I've done my bit for the day. I've said what I felt to be the truth, and that's it. And it's like, no, you actually have to tell people in real life, in the same room, what you think. Because all this sort of posting on social media, it doesn't get you anywhere if you don't use your real name, because then nobody takes you seriously.
Oh yeah, I've actually said that to a couple of people, and then they got offended by that. Like, why don't you use your real name if you want me to actually address what you said previously? Because if you have some like weird name on the internet, like how am I going to remember? Because there's like 10 million weird names, and I can't really like remember Sly Shy or Diatribe or whatever the fuck they call themselves nowadays. It's but if you have like an actual name that's actually, you can actually pronounce it or remember it, I'll actually remember what you said before, instead of accusing me of not remembering or being neglectful. I'm being neglectful for a reason, because you won't put your real name out there. If you won't put your real name out there, I guess you don't really believe in what you say. You're just kind of just LARPing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm afraid a lot of people, even those who use their real name, are not really political activists. They just want a bit of attention. I don't think everybody does it for, I don't know, political reasons. They just want people to listen to them for hours and hours and hours and hours, and even though they have nothing much to say.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Claire, this is my whipping stick for secular Quranism, Canadian characteristics.
Well, I think it's a bit too big for the purpose I had in mind.
All right, I'll find a smaller stick then.
Well, I was thinking of a cane, one of those sort of, really, they make a swishy noise, but they don't really hurt. Well, they wouldn't really
This kind of makes a swishy noise. I don't know.
Okay.
But it's probably too thick. You're probably right. It's probably too thick. Yes. I'll find a smaller one. So I guess I'm a former political activist now. So that's.
Oh, have you given up on that now?
I don't know which group I should join. They're all kind of irrational. So even the Canadian Nationalist Party.
Right. Well, I think maybe we should kind of work together. And okay, this is my little idea that if we work together, we would sort of have more of an impact. So one of us says something, and there's somebody else saying something similar, and then you if there's sort of three of you in one stream, people will think they've been swamped by all these people who agree with this one person. And therefore, working together would have the effect of creating strength, an impression of strength.
Yeah.
And but anyway,
have you ever thought about like starting your own political party, or
No, because political parties. If I started a political party, it would be saying that I believe in democracy, and I'm just wanting to say to people I don't believe in it. And I think Okay, my very limited goal is to just get a good interview by somebody with a bigger channel, that others might have heard of, and I can't even get that because everybody's so bent on not acknowledging what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
I mean, particularly the Americans. It's sort of, when you think about it, it's all because America doesn't have an official religion, and they still don't think they need one.
Yeah. Well, there's that guy Stu Peters that I tagged you in. Said that
Yes.
America went off. Yeah, he makes some interesting. He's getting very interesting. Like he's saying stuff like, oh yeah, if the mistake we made was not recognizing Christianity as an official religion of the United States.
Yes, this Christian amendment thing, which I know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's actually a Wikipedia entry on Christian amendment, and this has been going on since the American Civil War, and they wanted America to have a proper religion, and that, but I think it would be un-American because that was the whole point of the founding fathers separating the church from their state. So they definitely didn't want Christianity. And therefore, the only religion that the founding fathers might be okay with is the one beginning with I.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they find it hard to face. But this is an argument that it can easily be made to Americans. Because they've always been having identity crises, like, are we a Christian nation? And the answer is yes and no.
Yeah. I guess Canada is different because we're in a monarchy. I guess
you're British still, technically. So you're all apparently Anglican.
Yeah, we still have Christianity as an official religion, I guess you could say, but it's not.
But nobody believes in it,
paper.
and we just follow the orders of the Americans. So it's like, well, we should get the Americans to adopt a religion. Because you see, the whole point of having a religion is you can work out what your whether your laws are in harmony with your moral system or not. So it's like, just imagine if you were really a Nazi country and then some politician passes a law saying we have to be nice to Jews. I mean, then something's changed, hasn't it? Because it's going against our moral system. We've always been mean to Jews, and now you want us to be nice to them. What's going on? Or you were commies, and now you're going to be, capitalists, or vice versa. But if you don't have a moral system, how do you know if your politicians are, doing it right or wrong? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. And this idea of democracy, it's kind of flawed because you have a party who's in there for 4 years, and then they're systematically incentivized, almost you could say, to have pass legislation that benefits them and their buddies, and they're not going to be held accountable the next year that they're out of office. It's the next guy that has to deal with them, right? And it's just back and forth, conservative and liberal, Republican and Democrat. They
would even stand for those liberal principles or conservative principles because it's not even defined properly.
Yeah,
it's like it's just the same thing.
Yeah,
but with different faces. And I think that's why the West is falling behind. It's falling behind China. That's why it hates on China. But actually, China is more rationally governed. I mean, they're doing things that make sense for China. But nothing our government does makes sense, for their country.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've heard of stories of Chinese government doing lockdowns, and they killed that killed a lot of their people that starved to death, and they didn't really plan out too well like they're very authoritarian, I guess you could say. But I guess the one good thing about being a one-party state is that they can change their policies on a dime. But the thing is with
Well,
China,
they
like we
do.
don't
They
really
have
know.
changed the policy. Apparently,
Yeah.
they were aiming for zero COVID, and then people complained so much they gave it up. So fine, at least they listen.
Oh yeah. It seems like in the West, it's all you had to get like people out in the streets, like walking streets, for the government to finally listen and stop fucking. I don't know, but anyway, that's beside the point. I'm not going to get too much into that. But yeah, like I think like, well, then the other aspect of it is like people have this aversion to dictatorship, and that the dictator is going to violate all our rights, and it's going, and they're not.
Also, the thing is about the caliph. The caliph is a constitutional dictator.
Mhm.
Well, and that's better than an absolute dictator, isn't it? And also,
Yeah.
the Romans would appoint a dictator if there was a national emergency. So it's not completely, unheard of, or that, dictators are always, bad people, because the Romans, when they were being attacked, besieged by, I don't know, I suppose the Carthaginians or something, they would elect a dictator for no longer than 6 months. I mean, they had ways of dealing with it. And to deal with a national emergency, and then 6 months later they'd have to be elected again if it was still necessary for that. But so it's not always a crazy idea to have a dictator if something needs to be done.
Yeah. So what would be like your manifesto if you don't have a political party? What would because I guess Hitler, he infiltrated democracy, and it seems to be kind of this like fantasy of activists of like, we're going to infiltrate democracy, and then we're going to pretty much enforce like this religious rule or religious monarchy or some form of one-party state. But obviously, I think the powers that be are kind of privy to that. And they shut down right away. Like it's kind of weird, but then we always say, "Well, don't you believe in free speech and freedom of ideas?" So they don't have an argument. So they shut you down, or they want to threaten to put you in jail, or not allow you in certain areas, stuff like that. So it's kind of dead.
My strategy is basically to say it's all for you, ruling classes. I mean, I would prefer to talk to them directly and say, this is how you can improve your government, and you don't need to ask anybody. The peasants will just not be able to do anything because they're a bit stupid and they're very disorganized, and this is how you can make your lives better. And I'm saying this directly to the ruling classes, because what's the next thing you'd like if you already had a job in the government? You'd want people to like you and respect you and trust you and all that sort of thing, wouldn't you? I mean, that would be the next thing. And if they had the proper, the right moral system, then they would be liked and respected. So this
the thing is like who is the ruling elite? I guess would be.
It could be anyone. It could be anyone, but I'm just saying, whoever's in charge. I mean, they're the only ones in a position to give me anything I want, because it's just the nature. It's just the logic of the thing. I mean, there's no point asking people who are not in government to give me what I want, because they wouldn't be able to, even if they wanted to.
So have you tried writing a letter to your representative about your ideas and
I don't think it would matter if I wrote to my rep, because I know they don't have any power. They're easily got rid of, and what they do to lone members of parliament and all that sort of thing. So So I think the people who really have the power are the people who run the media, basically, the BBC, all the rest of it. And basically all I need is them to platform me, and they're not going to do that because, well, they don't want to, they don't want my message to be propagated. It's not that I expect them to agree with me. I'm happy to argue with anybody who doesn't like my ideas and explain them, but I know I'm not being given the opportunity because they just want to suppress, my solution. Because it's so easy to explain and so easy to repeat and share that.
Well, they had Jordan Peterson on, I think the BBC, where he just described like the lobster thing, or
Yes.
or they had Andrew Tate, who's a Muslim, who explains the differences between women and men. I guess the difference between them and you is that you're not part of the club, so you'll probably have to be more creative in how you. Have you actually tried writing a letter to like the BBC or any of your like major media outlets at all, or trying to conduct an interview?
Well, the thing is that they know of me because, before all this, I posted on their Facebook page and, whatever. There was years of the stuff. And then, one day they just deleted all of it. And there were people there who knew and told me on Facebook that they deleted me. And also there was a time when they featured me in the media quite regularly. And it was like somebody said, don't ever report her again. And it all stopped.
Oh, yeah, because you had the comment of they accused you of infanticide, of
supporting it. Or,
somebody who's fairly disabled, who's born fairly disabled and won't have a productive life, who will basically be a vegetable. Like, it wouldn't be immoral to, end their life, and they found that really repulsive. Which is kind of funny because these same people advocate for abortion. They advocate for killing babies that are perfectly well or perfectly natural, healthy babies. You could just kill them because it's my body, my choice. But God forbid you say something like, what, if somebody is just going to be live on a tube for the rest of their lives. And, they're just going to be a drain, or they're not going to be there. They don't have any productive capacity mentally or physically. It should be their choice. It should be the parent's choice,
that's all I said.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
That's all I said. I didn't say there should be some government policy of extermination. But of course they want to deliberately misunderstand me so they can demonize me.
Yeah. Well, then you have like the flag of with you and the Nazi flag, and what is that, like an AK-47 or something? I don't know.
Oh, it was just a paintball. A
paintball gun. Oh yeah, that's right.
And mine is not even mine.
A paintball gun. Claire, I've been with some cringy people, and I'd say that's probably like the worst optics I've seen. But I get why you did it. But yeah, it's just like, people are going to be like, oh, we should get her for hate speech. Look, she's got a paintball gun or God knows, a real gun and a Nazi flag. What is she going to do next? Oh my, oh Lord. We should disbar her or silence her, But I don't know. I guess it's, it's kind of tongue in cheek, it's just kind of like, you probably move past it, as long as you are, as long as you sound sane, as long as you are sticking with the truth and you're not getting too insane with your arguments, that anybody can surpass optics such as that. I know everyone says optics are everything, but like those people are they're kind of like cute cards. Yeah. They're like cute tarts of like, just enjoy the show, just sit back and have some popcorn and enjoy the show. Optics are everything. The military will take over and this, that, and the other. I don't know. It's kind of insane shit. But, I think like, like you're pretty famous. You know how to get to the establishment, but they can't lock us out forever, right? I don't know. It seems like that sometimes, but like if there's a will, there's a way, I always say. So
I think so. I think so. And the thing is, my message is very easy to repeat and understand and pass on. And I don't even need to be around, do I? Really, it's very simple. Sharia for non-Muslim Westerners. The only way to restore the patriarchy and to defeat the matriarchy.
Oh yeah, yeah. That using words like that, no one uses words like that. So then people know what those words mean, or at least if they have an high school education. But like that's probably why they pretend that they don't understand, or they misrepresent what you're saying. So, yeah. I don't know. But you wanted to get an interview with Jordan Peterson, and you wanted me to like write him a letter or something, and then I could like CC you kind of thing, and then just kind of go from there. Or how's your efforts with contacting Jordan Peterson?
Well, I thought it would be really nice if all these Muslims. I don't know if you saw that interview with him and Muhammad Hijab, and Muhammad Hijab said something like about it seems that Islam is more probabilistic than Christianity, and why would you consider becoming Muslim, Jordan Peterson? And he said no, that's nothing to do with whether Islam is easier to believe than Christianity. And he was basically saying he didn't really care about the truth of the matter because, he just wasn't going to convert to Islam.
Oh, no. He's Islamophobic?
I think so. Or just okay, the unspoken message was that he thought Muslims were peasants and he wasn't going to be joining them anytime soon.
Okay.
Or
so what better way than a lady with a British accent to tell her that Islam is the way?
Well, the thing is, I suspect they already know. They've just been told to ignore me, And I've dealt. The thing is, when you've dealt with all their objections, and they still pretend not to understand you, and that they'll try to think of some other problem, that you hadn't addressed, so they can reject it. I mean, that's their way. Unless somebody in charge who is honorable and influential says, well, I think this is the right decision and I'm going to go for it. I mean, is it possible that all the ruling classes in all Western nations are completely corrupt? It's possible.
Yeah. All priests, all priests are corrupt as well. All churches are corrupt. There's no really utility in them anymore, other than their own flawed interpretations of the Bible, of their own denomination. You could say that that especially the Catholics are idolatrous, and you wanted to. I saw you retweeted like Pope Francis and the Archbishop of Canterbury, that you wanted them to denounce that Christianity is idolatry.
Well, no. The idea was basically for them to explain how Christianity isn't idolatry and how Jesus is God, because I'm familiar with how these theological arguments go, which is that it's not idolatry to worship Jesus if he is God. And then they run out of the room before you can ask them, how is Jesus God? And so basically the Trinity is morally and intellectually indefensible. They have no way of defending it. They were only able to defend it when they were able to burn heretics at the stake, which was you guys until the American Republic was founded, because the American Republic was about separating the church from the state and rejecting monarchy, which was supported by Christianity. So I mean, there is a reason why America doesn't have an established religion, because the founding fathers were making such a point of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't think, oh, the Americans didn't mean to separate the church from the state, and they didn't mean to have the First Amendment. It's like they clearly did.
Claire, what do you
And
think about my whipping stick? Is this better? It's a little smaller.
it's a bit smaller, but I think you need something professional that makes a
Okay.
sort of switch, more a headmaster's cane, perhaps.
Headmasters can. Okay. Well, if I find one, I'll let you know. But
You'll have to
I'm just,
buy one, I think.
yeah, I'll have to do what I do right now. I'm on a budget. I got to find some sluts to whip.
Okay. Talking
I'm
about
sorry. I'm just being.
I just want people to understand that. I mean, okay. Just supposing everybody became secular Cowardice, on the 1st of May, and it's like, and then somebody has a baby without a wedding certificate on the 2nd of May. I'm kind of saying, okay, maybe that's a bit unfair. You didn't have notice, so I'm going to give people a year's grace to, not become unmarried parents. So then it becomes exactly a year after May, i.e. May 2024, and you have a child out of wedlock, then you definitely do get lashed 100 times.
100 of these. Next year. You got a year, slut, to repent.
But in the meantime, people can virtue signal by saying, yes, I'm an unmarried mother or an unmarried father, but I repent. And then I have a list of all these people, like first person to repent. Well, they're all right. And, second, third, fourth. And then you get a list of all these repentant, and then you forgive them. And then, and then they'll shame the people who do become unmarried parents after the period of grace. So this is how I would manage things. I mean, obviously I know that there's quite a few of them already, and of course I'm not going to condemn them, without giving them an opportunity to repent and show that they, want to do better in future.
Yeah, for sure. May 2024, the whip comes out.
Yes. I mean, that's fair enough.
My ego is going crazy right now. Just like the idea of being the God forbid, the Sharia police, and going around and seeing who has illegitimate children, and I don't know.
Well, the thing is, it's just going to be self-reporting. It's like, you can't really hide a baby. If there's one living next door, you're going to sort of see it if you're the neighbor of the, and
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's going to be obvious, right? You're not going to you're not going to police one night stands because, God forbid. But if there is a baby with it, well, then. Well, I wonder if abortions would go. What about abortion? Would you still have the pill, or? So I feel like abortions would come up too if women knew that there was a punishment for having a baby. Wouldn't abortions increase as well, or would they still have access to abortion, like the Plan B pill instead of the surgical one, the more harsh one, I guess? Would you still offer women the pill, or would you just abolish abortion, and so everyone would just basically, well, you have a grace period to adjust your behavior, and then once that grace period is over, what would be the protocol for that, for abortion? Would that be completely abolished, or would there still be a pill? Hello? Oh, Claire, you're muted. Shit. Am I out? Oh. too many birds. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Claire.
Something happened.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't mute myself, but it happened, and maybe something to do with bandwidth issues. But to
Oh,
answer your question, I'm going to be neutral about abortion, because okay, I haven't really decided yet, but I'm not going to ban abortion because it's going to. You know, it's like, well, you know, what if you're knocked up and you want to hide it? Okay, I don't know. I haven't really decided, but I'm not going to ban it. But you know, obviously, I'm going to, you know, be
what about
managing.
adoption?
Yeah, you
They
can
get
put
adopted,
it up
yeah.
for adoption, and then you know you won't get into trouble. You know you go away, you have the baby, and then you give it away, and you know there's no need for everybody to know. You know.
Yeah.
And this was how I think it was dealt with in the olden days, you know,
Mhm.
when people didn't have abortions, they would just give it away. What was the question again?
The abortion.
Yeah, okay. And as for the birth rate and as for the pill, I'm saying that only prostitutes, registered prostitutes, would have access to the pill, and mothers who are deemed to have completed their family. And it could be, you know, maybe 3, it can go up, or 4, you know, depending on what the government wants it to be. And that's how to manage
okay.
it.
Okay, so if you have like 3 or more children, or if you're a prostitute, you have access to abortion.
The pill, I was talking
Or
about
the
the
pill.
pill.
Sorry, the pill. Yeah. The pill. Yeah. Okay.
So, and
Yeah.
everybody else has to be careful. But, you know.
No wonder why no one wants to talk to you.
Yeah, because you know, I guess fundamentally, I mean, if you think that God was just an invention of man, I guess, you know, maybe some guy thought, well, the only way to stop us from behaving in this way is to pretend that there is somebody who knows our hearts and minds, and you know will punish us if we commit acts of sexual immorality, because they can be committed in a few minutes, really, can't they, when you think about it. And you know, if people just think they can get away with it if nobody notices, then you're going to get a lot of sexual immorality and a lot of problems, a lot of social problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And I think, you know, it is a kind of problem, like, you know, if you don't parent this generation well, and then they grow up and they're delinquent and mentally ill and drug addicted, and you know they have a next generation, and they'll be even worse and worse and worse until your civilization collapses. You know, if it's not corrected.
Yeah, no, most people don't think about that stuff. Yeah, it's like, you know, like they can't even field an army anymore. Like, it's like a slow erosion. So it's not
Well,
like
you're
sudden right
hiring
away.
all these mercenaries, right? You're hiring all these mercenaries from another country, and in the end, they will control you, because they'll be the ones in the police force, in the army, and you know, you guys will be nowhere.
So you're saying that like China? Well, have you heard of like there's like Chinese police stations in Canada already?
Just to protect Chinese people,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the Shom Rim.
yeah. Everyone's
Oh,
up in arms about it. But like, you know, you
yeah,
don't have a
it's
government that's gonna.
annoying.
Yeah, you don't really have a government that really enforces anything. You know, except for white people. You know, policing white people's behavior, or those who have conservative moral values. You know, those people need to be policed. But you know, foreign actors having police forces, you know what, we'll turn a blind eye to that. It's not a big deal. You know.
Yeah, in a way, it's also an insult to the police of, you know, the country. I know that in Venice, there was a kind of, you know, Chinese police force, because there were just so many Chinese people, Chinese tourists there, and I guess, you know, they'd all get confused and lost and robbed and whatever. And so they actually had an arrangement where there would be a Chinese-speaking Venetian policeman hired specially for the Chinese. So, but it is sort of like saying, we've got our own special police force, and we're better than you who don't, haha, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I remember you're doing a video about like millennial woes back in 2020. This was like beginning of the pandemic, I think. And you're saying like, and Mark Collect, and they were saying like, Mark Collect like basically denounced millennial woes for sleeping with a woman without her consent or something like that. And you're criticizing him because that he just basically, it just made it sound like he was just kind of being reactionary or trying to have good optics, as they say. So obviously, like I know, like there are men who like definitely abused women, and they need to be held accountable. But for the most part, there seems to be like this trend of like, especially in our legal system and even in our political and like moral values into believing women, no matter what, as long as they're hysterical enough, they should be believed, or else they're gonna go to the authorities, and then you're gonna be in trouble, and then you're just gonna have a long investigation or legal battle. Even if you win, your name's dragged through the mud, and and then and then your cause is discredited, stuff like that. So like I guess there would be like defamation laws. Would you enforce defamation laws against women with false accusation? We should do that already, but
yes. Okay, there's actually a rule in the Quran that says it's the 80 lashes rule, right? When I think it was Aisha, she was being accused of adultery, and it wasn't true, and then lo and behold, there was this verse in the Quran that says, if you falsely accuse a chaste woman of a sexual offense, you get 80. I suppose it would be getting 80% of what she would have got if she had been falsely convicted of the offense. Because okay, I take it to mean that 100 lashes is for anyone having sex outside marriage, whether they're married or not. So if you're an adult, you get 100 lashes. Even if you're not married, you still get 100 lashes. So it's the same.
Yeah.
But if you, so yeah, I think 80% of what the penalty would have been if the falsely accused person were convicted is fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also
it's just so bizarre. It's so I'm just gonna say it's so bizarre that like immigrant Muslims, like you don't hear any of this stuff from them. Like you don't even hear about them criticizing the Trinity. Only if you ask Imam, he'll start doing it. But like none of them criticize the Trinity. All of them are just basically like bootlicker. I hate to say it, bootlicker immigrants that whoever government let them in. They're like, oh, can Justin Trudeau? Can you let in my father or my uncle or whatever? And like these politicians like Justin Trudeau and even Pierre Poilievre, they're just like, oh well, we accept all people of faith, happy Ramadan, happy Shabbat or whatever, and and then the current conservatives will be the edgy ones, of course, and they'll say, oh yeah, happy Easter. Oh yeah, I'm the conservative, right? But like the liberals won't even recognize. I think Justin Trudeau actually made a declaration like he doesn't recognize that there's a mainstream of Canada. Like there's basically no identity of Canada. It's post-national. He said that in 2015. So he made that declaration. So it's part of his platform, explicit platform, that Canadians have no identity. So that thing. with like immigrants and like, you know, if Justin Trudeau, if Justin Trudeau actually read the Quran and he actually saw the punishment of he wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't say happy Ramadan, you know, like it's just so fake. I just hate it. It's so fake on so many levels. I hate this pandering. I hate these politicians, and I hate these controlled opposition people. Like it's so fake. It's just there's this. It's just virtue signaling. Like nobody really stands for any principles, and Donald Trump was like the only one in the West, I guess, that actually stood for something. He spear tipped it, but you know, like, but there's still a lot of like politicians that just don't stand for anything, you know, and they don't, you know.
Yeah, that's because you haven't got a religion. That's why you have no principles, because you.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't know. You know, if you don't have a religion, you would have no religious principles. If you have no religious principles, you have no moral principles, and so you know that is obviously the problem. It's not. It shouldn't even be controversial.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's up to the Americans, really. It's like, you know, I don't think they're having a good time, are they? I mean, I guess you can say, well, if you're a neocon or neoliberal, but I imagine even these people must be feeling a bit nervous about things because they must know how many people hate it.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is why
Like,
they're increasing censorship, because they're scared.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
And they're so afraid of Trump getting voted in again.
Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Trump, but I guess he's like the lesser evil, or you know, at least stands for something, I guess.
Well, a Trump and Tucker ticket, can you imagine?
It can happen.
Perfect. I mean, that would be unbeatable.
Yeah, some people are saying like, what about a Trump and Tulsi Gabbard? Because Tulsi Gabbard's like progressive, but she criticizes neocons and neoliberals as well too. So
Trump and Tucker, Trump and Tucker, Trump and Tucker. It trips off the tongue more easily. No, they would be unbeatable. I mean, can you imagine? Just nobody.
Well, they're even talking about like violence against like white people, and you know, even having mercy on their enemies, and I don't know, like it'd probably be. I wouldn't mind like a right wing kind of hard right wing dictatorship of that sorts, I guess, as long as it's managed correctly. But you know, yeah. I prefer that over fucking these stupid liberal tards.
I think so would everybody. That's why they're so scared.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but once US does that, like Canada is gonna follow. Like Canada's kind of conservatives are like Pierre Poilievre is like are populist. I say that very sparingly. But I guess he's like said the same thing, but like, you know, I guess he's not really he doesn't really criticize immigration, you know. He's still like pro immigration, and he doesn't really like he's not hardline like against like transgender. He hasn't said anything. And actually, like Michelle Rempel, one of the conservative members, actually denounced people protesting drag queen story times. So you know, if she's still part of the conservative movement, then I guess they're really kind of just controlled opposition at this point. They're kind of useless, right? They say the things that, you know, that'll get them enough votes, and then, you know, when push comes to shove, even if they view it as potentially unpopular, they just don't do anything, which is just really frustrating. It's just like these people just need to go. Like, they don't need to be here, or just change their strategy totally different. I think they do have that capability. They just see where the wind blows, I guess. They say, well, it's popular to have principles and go against the grain, I guess, of the liberal establishment, and they'll probably do it. So,
well, I mean, having principles is an easy way to judge somebody. Because I guess in the olden days, I mean, everybody was forced to have a religion, even if they didn't believe in it. They'll have to say, "Well, my parents are Hindu," or something like that, because it would just be very unusual to somebody says, "Well, I'm atheist," because the presumption, if you call yourself atheist, is that then you're just gonna kill people and steal and do all kinds of terrible things. If you thought you could get away with it, why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, I've actually posed that argument to atheists, and they just say, "Well, people are just inherently good." And I'm like, "No, come on. If you know you can get away with it, would you?" And then they just go, "Oh well, you're just assuming that human nature is evil." I'm like, "What world do you live in?" There's evil everywhere. There's people that get away with like crazy shit all the time, and you think that human beings are just good on their own free will, which is this naive faith of human nature, whereas religions say, well, despite man being evil, manipulative, that there is an ideal to strive for, even if we're not perfect, that we should still have principles when push comes to shove, and that even though we're not perfect angels, we're fallen angels, that that we have something that we can hold on to and that we can be judged by.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we need the rules to tell us what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. I mean, I think everybody needs that, and I just don't see what the problem is, and also the whole point of having principles is that it's like, okay, so you say you're Jewish, but what am I to think of you if I see you, watching football or playing football, on a Saturday? I think you're not the very religious sort of Jew. Okay, fair enough, but I would be able to kind of form a conclusion about your behavior. Or if you say you're Muslim and I bump into you in the casino and you're drinking and eating pork and gambling, then I know what kind of Muslim you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically a way of measuring the moral worth of somebody. It's like, okay, you say you have all these.
What would be what a Christian would? What would be a good Christian?
Somebody who went to church every Sunday, I guess.
But would you say that wouldn't you be a good Christian if you accepted the Lord and Savior as your Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you had a cross over your neck?
Well, you would be identifiably Christian.
Mm-hmm. But what would make a good Christian, though?
Well, I guess a Christian would be obeying the Noahide laws, even though they are idolaters. But the point about Christianity is that they were just meant to be controlled by the state, because you can imagine the kind of bargain that the church would have with the Christian subjects of Christian monarchs. It's like, if you're concerned about anything, well, just pray to Jesus. And if you don't like the laws of your king, well, there's not much you can do about it, because if you protest, you'll bad things will happen to you. So just pray to Jesus, and if there's anything upsetting you, just pray to Jesus, but obey the law of the land, and shut up. And if you're upset, fight and pray to Jesus. And if you don't shut up about, not believing in Jesus, then you'll be burnt at the stake. And that was basically how Europe was run. I don't think a lot of people know that, because I guess it's not the kind of history, you guys learned. But I'm sure you've heard about, burning people at the stake.
Yeah, I've actually read a whole book about like European history and European, like, the evolution of like the different beliefs and Catholicism and Protestantism, and and basically that the how Catholics and Protestants eventually came together and basically had an ethic of just basically materialism. Like, they just believed in, well, we have basic needs, so I don't think we should be burning each other at the stake anymore. So like, because the Bible there was so much interpretations of the Bible that they just said, well, we can only agree upon that we that we need to meet our basic material needs, and we need to outrun an empire, basically. So, we'll just, we'll put that to the wayside for now, and kind of embrace secularism. So, which is why I guess you had America. Separation of church and state, right? So,
yeah. But, I mean, you can imagine why. I mean, even the story of the Pilgrim Fathers and the Mayflower, they were basically Christians, but they were Puritans, and they were Christians from the English Republic under Cromwell. So obviously, after the restoration of the monarchy, they were, unbelievably unpopular, and they were kicked out. And there was a story of them going to Holland, as refugees, and then they realised that Holland was too decadent, and they knew they would, assimilate, and therefore they decided to go to Virginia. And but it was
did
all
you know they didn't celebrate Christmas?
I didn't know
Puritans.
that. Oh yeah, they cancelled Christmas, and they didn't go to the theater or something.
Yeah, Christmas wasn't like celebrated until until the 1800s in America. Like even the foundation of America in 1776 with the 13 colonies, they still didn't have Christmas as a national holiday.
Mm-hmm. Because it would be a religious holiday. Americans would have Thanksgiving, but that's a national day, as well as July,
4th.
Independence Day, July the 4th.
Yeah. I think it was 1871 was the first day of Christmas to celebrate in America. So they actually had an understanding of the Bible. There's nothing that says that Jesus was born on December 25th. It's just kind of some people says it's just
winter, though.
It's a winter solstice. It's basically kind of adopt some sort of paganism, with the Catholic Church adopting some paganism symbolism, so that that it would be consumable by the ethnic Europeans, ancient ethnic Europeans. But the thing is, though, the Catholic Church, they knew that this chaos would ensue if people started reading the Bible, because it's not really. So that's why there was a high illiteracy rate in Europe in the Middle Ages, and it was just the Catholic Church that was only allowed to read the Bible, and everyone else was only supposed to listen to the priest. And then people got pissed off. Then you had Calvin, the Protestant Revolution with Calvin, and that's why you have Calvinists. They basically
who practice usury.
Yeah, started practicing usury, and it was a good way to expand an empire. It was through usury and economically destabilizing people and deceiving people, and not having an overarching Catholic Church or a monarchy to limit their expansion. I guess I don't know if you know, but there's a May long weekend. We celebrate in Canada Queen Victoria Day. I don't know if you celebrate that in Britain. Do you have a Victoria Day in Britain at all?
No, I haven't heard of it. What day is it celebrated?
Oh shit! On? It's called May long weekend. It's called Victoria Day, and it's just basically another celebration of a queen, Queen Victoria. Even though she was really repressive, basically. There was these land agreements that she had where, she had, as long as she was still alive, she would have absolute claim to all resources in, I guess it would be Canada. It wasn't technically Canada, but it was basically a British colony. And then once she died, that's when I guess the industrials came in, and they were more, and then they took over Canada, I guess you could say. But yeah, so I don't know. I didn't know you guys don't celebrate Queen Victoria Day?
Well, we call it the May bank holiday. Which is
interesting.
What we had this weekend, because
May bank holiday. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's called. I guess in America it'd be called May Day. or something, or Labor Day.
really?
Labor Day.
Oh,
Maybe.
Labor Day. Oh no, that's in September. I mean, everyone celebrates Labor Day. That's in.
Oh, okay. What am I thinking of? But there's some sort of May bank holiday that's something to do with the worker, as far
Oh,
as I
okay.
understand it.
Yeah. No, this is about celebrating Queen Victoria, just in Canada. I guess it's just a Canadian thing. I didn't realize that. Oh shit. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay.
But
Yeah.
a lot of these holidays are seasonal anyway. I mean, you were talking about Christmas. It's like, well, I guess people in the olden days, wanted a winter festival, and there would be a spring festival and a summer festival and an autumn festival, which would be a harvest festival.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's what they did in Europe. Yeah.
So really, it's seasonal. I mean, I think that the Jews have their own, festivals that kind of, it's like Passover is, well, their Easter, isn't it?
Yeah, like the Abrahamic faith, like there's Ramadan, and then there's Easter, and then there's Passover, all in April.
Mhm. Yeah, but Muslims have a lunar calendar, which makes all these things kind of lag 10 days behind or something.
I've heard of like theories about like April is actually like the first month of the year, which is why you have all these festivals. Is the Anno Domini calendar was adopted by the Catholic Church, and it wasn't adopted throughout the rest of Europe until like a couple hundred years later, even up to the time of Isaac Newton. Adopted this Anno Domini calendar that we know now of January being the first month as opposed to April. And I think there was only
Oh,
10 months. There's only 10 months that was in a year. It wasn't 12. Like you think of like September, like that should be like month 7, but it's actually month 9 of the year. And then October, like 8, you think Octagon 8, but it's actually month 10. And that kind of makes sense. Like November, it's supposed to be so yeah, it's kind of interesting when you think about it. Even December too. December Deca 10, right? But it's the 12th month of the year. So and they said that January and February were added as the months. So it's quite interesting.
yeah. I know the French did something weird with their calendar too, and I think they made it into 10 because they were obsessed with metrification, making
Metrification?
is that the right word for it? I mean, making
What?
things in tens.
Oh, okay. I guess so. I never heard of that.
Metrication, maybe I meant metrication. Or
Okay. I never heard you describe it that way before, but okay.
maybe I got the word wrong. Let me just check if I got it right. Yeah, metrication. Metrication is the word.
Oh yeah, that's cool. All right, well, I think I should. It's been a good stream. I don't want to make it too long, but I'm kind of hungry. I want to get something to eat. trying to get back to a good eating schedule again.
Alrighty.
But it was good. It was nice talking to you, and nice kind of venting on your platform and getting it out there. I appreciate that. Yeah, no longer a political activist for democracy, I guess you could say my title is. And anybody who's still associating with Travis Patron, I'd say, buyer beware, just don't. Or if you do, like, try to help him out. Like, I tried helping him and he just didn't want to help. So he's a very intelligent guy and he did have some good ideas, but then it went downhill fast, and it's unfortunate. And I think the problem is he still believes in democracy. Like, he still has on his website, like, to gain majority in parliament and, the nationalist movement. And it's just like, dude, like, he's just conflicted on what to do next, I guess, because he's so married to his idea of the party. He put so much work in it, and it had so much publicity that he just can't let it go. I wish he just let it go. and move on.
Yeah, it's about, crystallizing your loss, because if you don't acknowledge failure, then it's not official, and maybe in theory could still become right again. I think in the buying and selling of, shares and stocks and whatever, it's like, you bought this thing and the price is going down, 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 down. And some people won't sell because they think, well, if I sell, it means I've lost. So I will just hang on to them and maybe it'll bounce up, and they never do. Or, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
But you're still a political activist, are you? Or
I guess I don't know. I'm apprehensive to say that when you're on the internet and you're criticizing people's ideas. But I guess in a form, online activist. But I'm very hesitant to call myself an activist. I guess you could say. A servant of God, I guess you could say, would be a proper title, as opposed to a political activist. Because I think our issues are bigger than politics. It's religious. It's spiritual. As Tucker Carlson said, as he alluded to, that it's not just a political problem; it's a spiritual problem. So, or I guess you could say a metaphysical problem, or our precepts that we operate off of. That we don't even realize that we operate off of. Some of us, I guess. So I would say a servant of God would be a proper terminology, because activism would be like, oh, you got to have a political party and you got to be a member and all this. Then you have the paperwork and all that stuff. And I don't know. I mean, it was good. It was effective. I guess it was good for when it was high vibe and high good times. And I hate to be the one that just, bandwagon jumper and, I stuck onto it, but, you just have to get to a point where it's just like, it's not going anywhere. There's no really upside to it. You just have to move on to life and take your losses and move on and learn from your failures. And that's kind of the flow of life. So that's how it goes. Fail upward, as they say, one failure is closer to success, as they always say.
That's right. That's right. Okay,
but anyway.
Then. Well, thank you, John, for coming by, and I hope we speak again before too long.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, sorry, I was just busy last week. I was just busy with work and all that stuff, so that's why I wasn't on. But yeah, it was good. Good talking with you. Keep these streams going, and I'll get you some. I'll work on that letter to Jordan Peterson if you want. If you still want it, I could write him and CC you and see where that goes from there. See if he responds. It might take a little while, but I could do that for you, and and see where that goes. But I like the idea of going into a media and getting an interview. What about like an interview to like the CBC? Like there, that'd be cool.
Yeah, the
CBC,
Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah. That would be. Oh man, they love that stuff. Like CBC is like, because like they have to like preserve. It's actually in their broadcasting corporation. They actually have to, present. They have to promote the Canadian identity. So it'd be like, well, I'm contributing to the diversity of the Canadian identity with Islam, and that'd be interesting to see what they say, because it's like a brand new market. What if you're on the CBC, Claire? What would you think about that? It's kind of like a British Light.
I'd love to be on the CBC, international media.
There's some hard hitting. I don't know if you heard, but like CSIS, like they did a story on CBC. There's a CSIS guy on there that said that the Chinese are meddling in Canadian elections, and the reporter there was just shocked. It's like, whoa, what the? Yeah, so I don't know. We used to have like like there used to be a guy named Peter Mandridge. He used to do like good stories. Like he was a respected journalist. But I don't know. It's just a bunch of cat ladies on CBC now. So I think you do well there.
Okay. Maybe they'll like me, the cat ladies.
Yeah. So. And Don Cherry used to be on Hockey Night in Canada. I used to watch him every night or every Saturday night. Then sure enough, I don't know if you heard, but he got kicked out. I guess it's a Canadian issue. He got kicked out of CBC because he was criticizing immigrants for, not wearing the poppy during Remembrance Day. He's like, you people, you come to the land of milk and honey, you don't even want to wear a poppy. Like, who do you think you are, right? Basically, and then they axed him because it was too bigoted for him. So he's like kind of like an old school kind of traditionalist kind of guy. So I don't know. Have you heard of Don Trade before?
No, I haven't. But I know people kind of make a thing about wearing the poppy. Do you wear a poppy on Remembrance Day?
I'm conflicted about that. I don't know. Some people wear the white poppy. I guess I would wear the white poppy just to symbolize peace. Because what did our ancestors fight for? Like, if they fight for democracy or did they just fight for bank rewards? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I would wear. I wear the white poppy in Remembrance Day. I don't wear the red one. I wear the white one for peace. So I think that's what I want to strive for. In Islam, they always say, peace be upon you, peace be upon you. So no one takes that seriously. It's just kind of like, they say it over and over and over and over again. It's like, but no one really like reflects on it. It's just kind of a thing they say, like you say, how are you doing? I'm doing good. You know what I mean? It's just kind of this natural kind of, this kind of passing by words. But like, I take that seriously. Like, when you say peace be upon you, I mean that. So, yes. It's hard. It's hard to like, especially when you're out there in a world of conflict, it's something to definitely strive for, I'm striving for peace, even with my enemies. So that's something that we should all strive for and not just be, paranoid about them spying on us or, using their words against us. I just said, well, if I have something to say to you, I'll write it down. I'll send you a letter. You have to read it anyway. So I don't mind if you listen to my conversations or listen to what we have on here on YouTube. So that would be, I'm not scared of them. Like, I just want to make peace with them. Whoever you are, Ceases or whomever, I wish peace to be upon you. And, you listen to what we have to say, and I hope that you meditate on it, and you hope that, because we're all in this together. So, we can't other each other all the time. So let's come together and come up with a solution.
Solve the problem.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be awesome. So, if you guys can help out Travis anyway, that'd be great too. If there's a facility you can give him to, that is compassionate and, that is empathetic towards him, that'd be great too. So,
Is he religious?
Supposedly, he's Christian though. That's the thing. So it's I kind of criticize him. Just like, well, you're just justifying your failures because you have a martyr complex. So it's kind of martyr complex. Yeah, that should be a disease or something. I don't know. I mean, it's good to be a martyr sometimes, but sometimes it's just not called for. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's complicated. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I hope he recovers.
He's intelligent. That's the thing. It's just such a waste. It's just, he was like one of the first people that I don't know if you knew, but he was like writing about Bitcoin and the potentials of Bitcoin, and he's really smart, like technologically savvy, and he has all this talent, all these skills, and he graduated the University of Saskatchewan, and then he I don't know, he just it's just a fine line between sanity and insanity. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I just think he needs to stop doing the same thing over and over again. I think he'd be better off, honestly.
Or try it more gently.
Yeah, just actually envelop some Islamic principles and actually, strive for peace as opposed to, winning the battle or whatever, right? Or winning some territory or some stupid shit like that, or, getting one up on somebody, So,
yeah. Just having, limited objectives that are achievable so you can.
Oh, yeah.
You did.
Yeah,
He
limited
manages
objectives.
Yes.
Yeah, that would probably help for him. Yeah, I hope he's listening to this too. That'd be great, but I don't know.
Well, you can send it to him. Haha.
I'll send it to him. I will. I'll email it to him, and then he'll see what he says, or if he says anything at all. Maybe he'll listen to you, and then maybe he'll get you an interview at the CBC. I don't know. That's crazy stuff, but whatever. Anything's possible.
Yes,
Because he wants to interview with the CBC. I'm just like, well, there's this woman. She's like, she values Islamic principles, or she wants secular Quranism. What if you had Claire Call and Travis Patron on CBC?
Yeah, it'd be funny. I mean, it would be, well, entertaining, I suppose, an odd combination.
That'd be good. Yeah, he needs to make more public appearances. That's what I criticize him too. He's too private. He's too paranoid about stupid shit. Like, he just needs to move on. That's what I think. But anyway, I gotta go. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go eat something, and then we could do another stream like this later.
Okay.
At a different time.
Then. Okay. Take care.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.